Tech Council. It's a nonprofit here in the state really focused on the economic impact of women in technology and really thinking about, with all of the technology partners that we work with, how diverse teams help accelerate business metrics. For those of you who might not sit in that space all of the time, there's a lot of reports lately that say if you have diverse teams, the companies outperform in revenue and profits. And so, there are these compelling business reasons that are helping us transform teams. It's all about diversity of thought, right? Get different perspectives, different people on the team, and that's what ultimately accelerates our growth. One of the interesting reflections I've had as I've built my career, so I came through technology paths. So I did a computer science undergrad, and then I did my MBA. So I've come through all of those technology pathways. That's how I built my career. That's the ecosystem that I live in. I spend my day job building product and thinking about how I build product, how I get people to use it, and the teams around me that help me create those. And when we started the Women Tech Council, I'm one of the co-founders about 10 years ago, I really did it just because I thought it was a great thing to do and that there was a need in the market, and having been one of 3 women in my graduating computer science class, there were interesting reasons to go do that. But what I didn't expect is the network expansion that it would create and the amazing relationships that would create that have then come in to take jobs in my companies. And it was just this natural effect of what happened. And one of the things I firmly believe is that as we all collectively meet each other and we expand our networks, that in and of itself is one of the most powerful ways to diversify your teams. And when I started, and you're going to hear a little about my experience as I go through my slides, but as I started my 3D printing company, I can't even remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, just naturally because of my network, 50% of my management team was female. Oh, that's really interesting, right? Like it wasn't because I tried a different way, it's because of the network and the people who slid into those spots. And we sold that company, and today I'm doing a digital interactive simulation platform. So we simulate very complex ecosystems for large companies that have everything from location services to security to network services to augmented reality to collaboration systems. And we simulate how those transform businesses. And on my management team today, there's 75% women. And it's not because I tried. That's the interesting part I've been reflecting on, is that we naturally build teams from people we know. And so the more that we integrate this community, the better we are. We have about 10,000 people in the Women Tech Council community. About 30% of them are men, because all of our careers are lifted by each other. And so it's about creating an ecosystem where we get to interact and we create that expansion. And so Mark has worked with us for many years on thinking about how we create inclusive cultures and diversity and how we build these teams. And it helps across everything: sales acquisition, product delivery. Every part of your business performs better as we integrate that. And of course, we're here talking, at SaltConf a lot about DevOps, a lot about deployment strategies and all of those core technologies, but it doesn't change it on any team, right? We want diversity, we want the diversity of thought, and the reason we want it is to accelerate opportunity. And so I get the cool opportunity from Women Tech Council to see all of our big tech companies thinking about this, focused on this, and trying to do compelling things to help all of us in the ecosystem. But today, because I was coming to speak to an audience that was way more on the technology side, I thought I'd focus a little bit more on some of the trends that I get to interact with today, and why I see those and how I ultimately think they're going to impact all of us. So, and I'm going to weave into that some of my background. So I run the Women Tech Council. It's a nonprofit. But over the course of my career, I've got to do a lot of really interesting things. So I've sat on the enterprise side. I've sat on the consumer side. I spent about 5.5 years at Disney and Imagineering doing technology commercialization. I've rolled out large products. I've rolled out small products. I do lots of validation. And it's been really fun to be able to see all that. The only common thread through my career is building product and getting people to use it. And I built a social media company on the Facebook API that we grew to. We had 600 million connections. We had 23 million monthly active users on that platform. And then on the flip side of that, when we built our 3D printing company, I was all consumer. So I did deals with Marvel and Star Wars, the NFL, Major League Baseball, Assassin's Creed, Halo. If you wanted to become a superhero, you used our product to be a superhero. But that meant we thought about deployments across Targets and Toys R Us and Walmarts. Hasbro was a major partner of ours. We got to do things like show up at the Super Bowl and deploy products. So I have this interesting diversity of experience when it comes to how you use technology, and then how you think about how you scale that and implement that and roll that out across what we're doing. So I'm going to weave in all of that into what you get to hear from me about some of the trend pieces. So these are my alter egos. So when I talked to you about making 3D printing, we literally took 3D scans of your face and we built a software platform that took polygons and merged them together. Because the one thing you've never thought about is that if you want to become Iron Man, Iron Man's helmet has to adjust to your face. Right? I can't put you in Iron Man's helmet because your face isn't the same shape. So we developed really sophisticated 3D software to understand how to stretch that without morphing it from the character to adjust to your face. We did that across everything. So you could be superheroes, but you could also be a Jedi, or you could be a stormtrooper. He's my favorite because when his helmet comes off, you get to see your face. That's a really cool thing to do. So anyway, these are some of mine. I think we were at the Super Bowl 50, so that was my Broncos, because remember they played Carolina at the game. And I actually don't cheer for either team, but I was there. I was probably more cheering for Cam Newton at the time than the Broncos, but I became a Bronco. Black Widow, Mouseketeers, all of those same kind of things. And I think that's the cool thing about technology is we get to wear lots of different hats. We get to learn a lot of different things over the course of our career, and it's the collection of all of those experiences that lead to opportunities and ways we think of the world. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit today around this megatrend that I'm following, which I call the digital to physical transformation. So I feel like for the last 6 to 7 years, we've been all about digital transformation. Everything has moved to digital, my device, SaaS, and cloud. But the intersection of where we sit right now is actually happening on how that digital world intersects with the physical world. Because now everything, when I step in, if you watch what's happening in our major retailers, they're all massively transforming. Because people aren't shopping the same way that they did. I walked into my house 3 days ago, my high school son, I said, hey, I need you to run over and set up this thing with me. And he said, Mom, I have to wait for a few minutes because I just ordered food on DoorDash. Okay, so then I was like, oh, well, major transformation in the world, right? Because my high school son is now fully integrated into this, like, I needed a physical place with food, but it's coming to me, right? The whole world is changing, right? He's like 17 years old, and the world he operates in looks nothing like what you and I did, right? And that's just the very beginning. So I was both proud of that moment and like, really? That's where we've come? But, that's the place that we're headed. So I wanted to, and part of what, so I'm going to throw a few kind of videos out there. I've been thinking about this for a long time. World of Color. Okay, so World of Color, I love World of Color. I call it the Bellagio on steroids, right? It's like, it's not just water fountains, but it's like fire and lasers and video projection. You talk about a technology feat. It's amazing to think about how you use water as the projection screen, program the lights, the whole show control system. So the ear hats that you see glowing happen to be a project that I got to work on while I was there. And it all came from this idea. So this is like early stages before we're like right now at the intersection of digital and physical. But we wanted to think about, at Disney, how you become part of a storyline. So this is the world I also operate in. Typically, when you go to Disney and you ride a ride, it's all about how you transform into the story, right? For a moment in time, you're a character in some storyline. But when you watch nighttime spectaculars, sometimes it's hard to make you part of a storyline because you're just an observer. So we wanted to think about how we integrated you into a storyline in things like World of Color. And so we created these programmable LED ear hats. So think about the intersection of physical and digital worlds. You're physically at a place, but now we're using technology to completely transform your experience. So when you wear those Mickey ear hats, if you watch, they're now fully programmable to the show control system. So there were IR LEDs all over, and as you watch that show, it's programmed so that you do it. If you walk down Main Street today, your ear hats will program to Main Street, and when you walk into Tomorrowland, they'll be different. And if you and I are friends and we stand by each other, they'll talk to each other because they have peer-to-peer syncing in them, and we can like sync up and walk down Main Street. But it's all about like early days of thinking about digital to physical integration, right? Technology and software are integrating, and they're becoming a required part of what it is. I was listening to the chief scientist from Microsoft, and she talked about the fact that our job in technology is to make technology disappear, right? And I think that's where we're headed, that every place that you step into, technology is so fundamentally a part of it, it disappears. And that's the evolution that we're headed into with what's happening between the physical and the digital worlds. I told you I literally made you characters. But we were thinking about that when we made you characters. Like, how does a physical, something like a toy, so Hasbro built a special toy line for us, and it's a physical product, but now technology was all a part of it. It became part of production line, became part of supply chain, became part of the creation of the asset and the full delivery mechanism in order to do that. And so now everything that you can touch is headed in that direction. And it will continue to do so. And I'm going to give you a few examples along the way. So devices. Like, how many of you, think about how many connected devices you have in your house. How many of you have at least 10? Okay, how many of you have 30? How many of you have 50? Yeah, I mean, we're like, I bet if you really thought about it, you probably have somewhere between 30 and 70 connected devices at your house. I mean, all my kids' room have Amazon Echoes sitting in them, right? Like, every morning when I walk in, I'm like, see, Ethan, you're going to be late for school. Alexa, what time is it? Right? Like, those are the things that are happening, and it's across the board in every technology. Sometimes on some of the television segments we do, like, I have a mug that's got a sensor in it that heats up by itself, right? That's cool. It's just your coffee mug, and you just turn on your app and you say, I would like it to go to this degrees, and it heats the water, and it will keep it at that all the time you drink it. Oh, see, that's really cool, right? And it's just a basic thing. I also really like the grill bot. He like cleans your grill for you. You know, you just turn it on your app, you clean your grill. I mean, every part of our world is going to connected technology, and we're just at the very beginning of it. So this is what the trends are expected to be on connected devices. We hear about the Internet of Things all the time, but it is exactly where we're at right now, and it's just accelerating. So by 2020, you're going to have over 50 billion connected devices. Now, this isn't just in our home. It's in every part of every commercial enterprise. Every commercial company that I touch is thinking about how you handle things like loss prevention. It's how I handle maintenance. It's how I handle my fleet. It's how I handle supply chain. It's everything that you can possibly think of. And this sensors, right, we have some sensors that are looking like RFID, but we're including things like NFC, right? We're including all sorts of technologies with Bluetooth LE, all of these things that are activating every part of the world that we live in. And what that means is that we're now accelerating the intersection of location, because now we know more about where you are, to the things that you're interacting with, to then drive experiences, deployment, optimization. I was just this morning brainstorming in the manufacturing process how dynamic assembly lines are going to be handled, where now when we incorporate, so in manufacturing, one of their major trends are they don't have enough talent. Oh wait, every industry right now in tech doesn't have enough talent. But talent and hiring people on assembly lines is a really big problem. And so how do you take when you only had a series of experts and develop technology that actually provides expert-guided assembly lines when people aren't there? Well, you're going to use augmented reality. You're going to use software collaboration systems that are sitting in the cloud. You're going to share screens, and you're going to write on those where you don't have to have someone physically in the plant. And then you're going to use things like 5G and video analytics to determine and give those feeds in real time to adjust what's happening, identify discrepancies, improve those manufacturing lines. And then for us as developers, it creates a whole different way that we think about architecture and deploying fixes to those types of things that are sitting on the line. And it's just going to keep increasing. Every physical thing that we have will have some kind of sensor recognition in it. And some things where the economics don't make sense, we might still use computer vision. But other than that, you know, we're going to be solving these problems across the way. So devices, this is a really big thing. It's driving all those conversations we're all having around the intelligence of things, the intelligence of goods, the Internet of Things. Like if you put of in the middle, you can alternate any word on either side of that phrase. And it's part of the world that we're living in. But that is the intersection that is going to drive the most innovation over the next decade, is in this specific space. Just a couple of numbers behind that. IoT, the spending is going through the roof, right? So if you think about IoT solutions reaching $6 trillion, GE, right, it's adding to the overall worldwide GDP. That's really, really fascinating. And I called out smart clothing because I just wanted you to think about there's these individual sections of the industry that you never thought about before, but that are going smart, right? So what does it mean when you incorporate it into shoes and in fabric and in clothing? There was some guys who tested over the holiday a bomber jacket in New York City that was fully tech-enabled. And it gave you VIP access to certain clubs. It interacted with your mobile app. I mean, all sorts of things that are just at the early stages. And when I was doing 3D printing, we were at the very beginning stages of custom fit shoes. So I can take a scan of your foot, and I can do those. And actually, at the Super Bowl 50 that we were at, one of the guys on the Panthers had broken his arm in the playoff game 2 days before. So they sent a scan of his arm. And we built a 3D printed cast for him to wear at the Super Bowl that had squishy material on the inside and hard impact material on the outside as one printed piece so he could play in the game, right? That is a really interesting way that the two worlds collide, right? And that we'll continue to see happen in this customized world, in the real-time solution solving that's heading out there. So smart clothing, that's amazing. Really, it's gonna hit 25 billion by 2021? And what does that mean? And then comes all those questions you guys are probably asking around like, how do I maintain that? What's the upgrade path of that? When does it, like, end of life, stop working on those kind of things? I mean, all of those questions now become really pervasive on how we build stuff. One of the other things that launched when I was at Disney was the Magic Band. Have any of you been to Walt Disney World and experienced the Magic Band? Okay, so a couple of you, well, now all of you should, just because it's an amazing experience. So this is a perfect example of the intersection of two worlds. If you're a company like Disney or any of the big brand companies, so I don't care if you're a Target or a Delta Airlines or a GE, at the end of the day, your value proposition at Disney, it is all about making memories. The only thing they want you to think about when you interact with them is how it was a magical day for your family and how you made memories. And we could have a whole separate discussion on culture and process and operations and how that makes it true. But that also meant that the way they think about technology is in that place too. So my job at Disney, in Imagineering, there's a group called Research, and there's all these brilliant academics, people who are thinking about problems the Disney company would face over the next decade. Think robotics, computer vision, 3D processing, anything in some really, really hard technical space. They're thinking about how to solve those. And then we would think about how could you productize them, right? And the productization path was all about how does that actually go to the value that we're creating around things like making memories. Or if it was the studios or ESPN or ABC, it might have a slightly different value proposition. But in the theme parks, the question was posed many, many years ago about how can we make it so that everything becomes basically invisible and all you think about is the experience you're creating. That is one of the things that I think that is our challenge with technology. If you think about the trend of making technology invisible, they didn't call it that then, but that really is what it was about. How do I make tech invisible such that the experience aligns with the business outcome, which is ultimately what drives consumer relationships and more value? Right? Okay, so if that's where we're headed, how do we make those things happen? So when I think about what happened with the Magic Bands, it ends up in that space. So it required massive investment. And of course, they did all the other things we could talk around, like validation, testing what that is. There are really hard technology problems to solve in that. So imagine you're creating a Magic Band that has to have extended battery life, has to fit on someone's wrist, can't heat up, has data that it's got to be able to communicate, has to be able to encrypt that data, connects to a cloud system, to a mobile app, connects to POS systems, connects to hotel key cards, transportation, a FastPass system, park entrance, food and beverage. Like, that's a complex problem, right? That's its job, is to become the trigger for all of those. And so those are the challenges we're faced with in creating physical devices, is that if they only do one function, right? Sometimes when I work with beacons and software-defined beacons, I'm like, the only thing they can do is send a URL. Oh, can't I do so much more, right? We're gonna head there. I wanna do so much more. I don't wanna just send a URL, although I can do a lot with the URL. It has to get more smart, right? So it can't just be device IDs. It's gotta be able to create action that extends the experience. That's the same boat you're in something like this, right? Now it has to, so they're thinking about creating something physical, but also changing the entire physical environment in order to do that. If you go to the parks today with the Magic Band in Walt Disney World, and in Walt Disney World, it's because you usually save for a decade. Like, that's what the average person does. It's like a once-in-a-decade experience for most families. You go there, you're gonna go there for many days, and you wanna just have an amazing experience. And so now if you go there, there's no more of the gates like you see in California to pass through. See that little green thing? You like tap your wristband, and it lets you in. You want to go buy something at food and beverage, you tap your wristband. You go to your photo pass, you get someone to take your photo. So photo pass, that's an interesting market because we all have these amazing cameras on my phone. Like I have to get the XS just for the camera because I upgrade only for cameras and capacity. And so, but you've got so many, but the photo guys at Disney take such better photos of my family, even with my filters in portrait mode. They take really good pictures of the experience. And now all I do is tap that guy, and now my photos are there, and they're there within seconds, and then I can share them on social, and they're so much better than the ones that I created because they have the whole background behind them of the exact moment in time. And then when I go to my hotel, there's no more keys. All I do is tap it, and I get into my room. So every experience that you can have in Walt Disney, and your Fast Passes, which I scheduled on my app before, now all I do is show up, and I tap for Fast Pass, and my family's in. I didn't send 20 people running around the park with these cards to go get Fast Pass, because we're really good at that. But that, you think about that experience, and now the whole world, the technology becomes invisible. And what Disney saw was an entire increase in engagement, experience, and revenue from that investment. And if you read what they talked about the fact that it was $1 billion investment, but it changed all the metrics of the business. And that's because the technology became invisible and the two worlds came together in such a compelling way that it drove experience. And if you don't think there's really hard tech problems in something like that, there are, right? If you go to Beast Castle, I really like Beast Castle, so you go to Beast Castle and you order your food, then you just get a rose, and you put the rose on your table and your food magically appears. Okay, that sounds magical. It totally is. And then imagine the tech stack underneath that, right? And how do you keep tables with a tech stack up to speed, right? And the communication signals going between those. These are the problems we are forced to solve in the technology development world, and to make it so that no person thinks about it. Think about the fact that you might have to think about things like, how can I make it so that a table doesn't heat up and doesn't need a power cord? That's an interesting challenge. Those are real problems that you're faced with in doing that, and then making sure that the actual right food gets to that table. And someone might have sat at one table and then they moved. Right, this was a bad table. I want to go to the rose room, so they switch over to the rose room. Right? All of those things are then creating interesting things. So that's what's happening to us. Intersection, digital, physical worlds. Been thinking about it for a long time, but now infrastructure is ready. And as you see network and bandwidth increase and things like 5G, where now we get better analytics and video streaming, we're just at the cusp of everything that means about where we're going to head and how we're going to approach that. I thought this was just kind of interesting on key IoT industries. Every industry you can think about has IoT that's headed there. And how many of you guys are in the consumer space right now? Your products go to consumers. Okay, we're all B2B people, or no one's raising their hand. It's one of the three. Okay, so I've now classified you all as B2B. So you're all in the business-to-business space. But more than half of those industries are in B2B. When I go into venues, I've been doing some work on the Miami Dolphins, all they're thinking about are connected venues, right? What does that experience change to when you're sitting there? Every airline that I work with, every retailer, their businesses are getting connected at every stage of the process that they're going through. And the spend is just going to continue to increase on that. Again, just all of those same ones, from your healthcare systems, all of the way into manufacturing management and large-scale deployments. And so we have to start thinking about deployment strategies, technology stacks, integrations that are going to support this. And I even think you have to architect for it now, even if it doesn't hit your industry for a year or two, because you want all of those things to be able to be supported as we go through. So I wanted to give you a couple of examples. So let me talk a little bit about intelligent retail and how these are intersecting. Retail is on the decline. Malls are closing. We have big stores going out of business. You see people like Toys R Us who files bankruptcy. Sports Authority files bankruptcy, and many, many more around all of us. Right? That's part of what's happening there. So everyone's rethinking what that means. So now let me just juxtapose that with something else. Everyone thinks Amazon takes over the world. Well, they're doing a really good job. But in order for Amazon to come into a local market where other people have physical infrastructure, it requires them to build a building. So they have to come in here, they have to build a building, and they have to put inventory in that. But our big retailers, a Walmart and a Target, 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of either of those stores. So that's an interesting challenge. So how do they change a business model to therefore be in last mile, to be in distributed inventory locations, to change their retail experience? Because oftentimes, like when we're out of milk, we probably go get milk, right? And it might not be good on a 2-day delivery. Right? That might be bad for the kids' breakfast in the morning and whatever else we're doing. So there are these reasons where you need inventory close to you. Now, a challenge a Target or a Walmart has is that their inventory is distributed. So while they might be close to you, their inventory might be 1 here and 10 here and 5 here. So now, how do they solve that problem? Those are the types of things that they're thinking about from their supply chain sides. And on the flip side of that, they're also thinking about things like, if you're a Target or a Walmart or a Costco, one of the things they don't know is why you come to the store. So let's think about that for a minute. Their biggest challenge is they only know about you on transaction. In the digital world, I follow you all the way through, right? I know it's in your shopping cart. I retarget you with emails. I say, why are you leaving this here? I give you a discount code. I do whatever I can to compel you to purchase. But in a physical store, they very rarely know who walks in the door, and they only know if you came in if you purchased. So retailers are really thinking hard in the context of making sure we maintain privacy, how they can help you have a better software experience. 90% of consumers search on their phone for a product while they're in a physical store. How many of you have done that? I do it all the time, right? You walk in and you're like, oh yeah, I need this Nintendo Switch. I wonder if it's cheaper somewhere else, right? And I need this game. And so you're standing on this aisle, and you're in a store who wants your shopping cart running, right? And they can't figure out how to keep it, right? So they should figure out how to keep it. You're in their store. You somehow committed to come in that store to their brand. And so how do they figure out, and this is where you're going to see things like video analytics trying to help consumers. You'll have to opt in, clearly. But if I'm standing there on that aisle, and I know that you're looking at the Nintendo Switch, and I know my network traffic thinks that there's someone searching for something, how do those worlds collide, and then I actually help you close the deal? Because why can't I take your $300 in this store right now versus send you to somewhere else that you have to travel? I make your life better if I do a price match right there because I see that you searched and actually take your revenue, even if it decreases my margin. So intelligent retail, we're quickly headed in this direction on both sides, supply chain, and then what happens in those physical stores. There's a stat that's not in my deck, but that talks about that 75% of companies now believe they're competing on experience versus other things. Well, that's interesting. That means experience is such a critical component to what we build and deploy that we have to be prepared for it. Yeah. Yep. And you don't even have to be a member at Costco. You pay a little bit more. Right. And those are all the models that are coming. So if we live in big metros, New York City, Seattle, Austin, we get those. But it's now becoming pervasive for everyone. And it's our job to think about what the implications of those are. Intelligent workouts. Anyone been on the Peloton bike? I've only been on it at CES, but so this is a really interesting way you think about workout. So your gym has a similar problem. Many of us go to a gym or a facility because we need the motivation of that, not that you couldn't do it at your house. I'm really bad at working out at my house. I have to go somewhere. But they have similar problems, which is very, very few of them, if you walk into a gym, actually know what you do when you get there. And they can't actually help you. So if you're a novice and you're walking into like the row machine and you need to know your workout, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, why can't they help you? Right? You're going to see that happen. The Peloton guys, they're super interesting because they decided that there's a class sitting in New York City with a really cool instructor that you really love, and they're just going to stream that to your bike, and then you're in a class with all of these people all over the country, and you're competing against them on your ride. And it's streaming that in real time. It's really cool. They launched a treadmill this year at CES also. But that's really interesting, right? And now all of a sudden we have a connected world all through this device. It's no longer just me with my workout, and I'm competing against people, and I see my celebrity trainer, right? Even fundamental things like that are changing, and now all of a sudden my gym is this fully connected experience. Right? And they're thinking about that. The fitness clubs are really thinking about how you embrace this because it ties in brand, loyalty, revenue, all of those things that everyone's driving after. This was one of my favorite things that they talk about at CES this year. So, and these are some consumer examples only because I think some of the consumer ones are really fun. Okay, I love the idea of my fridge having a camera. And when I'm at the store, okay, or now I'm ordering online, but I'm usually ordering from an airplane, to be honest. One of my children texts me and they're like, hey, I have photos and I need this for a dance. Chances are I ordered it online and it got there before I got home. So same thing with groceries. No one ever knows what's in my fridge, right? I'm like, are we out of milk? Someone's like, maybe. Okay, that's helpful. So how about the connected fridge? So the connected fridge has a screen on the front, has a camera on the back. You could, if you were really diligent, check in expiration dates so that it would tell you. But you could also just view it when you're anywhere remotely from your app, see what's actually in your fridge, decide what you need. It can also dynamically give you recipes for things you could make based on what's in your fridge. And then the front part of the screen acts as your whole communication system for your family. So now it's the entire family hub that says, oh, hey, as a reminder, the calendars are up. Haley's got dance, Rye's got soccer, so-and-so's headed somewhere, all from one device that's sitting in your kitchen. That's amazing, and we all need one, just saying. But this is how our kids are going to grow up, and their kids are going to grow up in a world that looks just like this, that every appliance is connected, that everything that they need to touch, they can pull up on a device, and they can integrate, and technology will become invisible to them across the board. So connected fridge, that's one of my favorite, but I really also liked the connected yard, and we're headed in these directions. This lawnmower might take a whole week to mow your lawn, just saying. We're not quite there yet. Like every time I watch him go, it's like, I'm like, when is he gonna run out of battery and have to recharge and then come back out to the yard? So aside from that, we're still headed in this direction. Like over the summer, I bought a sprinkler box that's fully app connected, right? My grill, all the tools on my grill can be fully app connected. All of your yard work, that's a really nice thought, right? Set it in the morning, mows my yard, comes back. I always see the laundry bot when I'm at CES, but I'm not really sure it works yet, and what we really need is the put away the laundry bot, so I'm waiting for that one versus the folding laundry. That's not currently the challenge. But it's interesting to think about these in every sense of our worlds, right? Our business worlds, our consumer worlds. What does connectivity look like? What are the communications that have to go on? And how do we solve really hard technology problems around these things that we're faced with? Intelligent cities. Okay, smart cities, you can't actually use that term anymore. It's like out of vogue, just so you know. So now you have to use things like connected cities or intelligent cities. But cities are getting connected. How many of you have heard of Hudson Yards? Okay, so Hudson Yard, next time you go to New York City, look off at about 34th towards the Hudson. There's this massive new deployment or structures going up that look like this. It's built on top of the Hudson Yard train track. So like literally the trains are below it and the buildings are on top of it. The building structures are massive. And it's an entire connected experience. So you can work there, you can live there, but everything is moving to things like concierge services. You don't have to own a car, but the cars are below and you just grab them on your phone. There's digital signage everywhere that creates routing. There's ordering systems. There's smart utility systems in every one of those. Like the entire experience, and it has everything. You'll see a lot of the big companies are actually moving into Hudson Yards because their employees can live there, they can work there. You can sign up for your workout class and just head on down there. Your dry cleaning is integrated, your shopping delivery. If you live by yourself and you don't really want to grocery shopping, you just need food delivery for one, all of that is fully connected into this city. Wayfinding is a big part of what's moving into even things like hospitals and all sorts of experiences. These cities are popping up. I'm aware of 5 or 6 big developments like this in the country that are all about connected experiences in one location. And that has every part of technology built into it. So we're headed there, and next time you should go check it out. Those buildings are amazing. It has this structure, I don't think it's in my picture, in the middle. It's like a mile walk up. Have any of you walked the High Line in New York City? Okay, yeah, so High Line, they created their own kind of like not quite High Line, but hike to the top to see the views when you go there. And it's worth going to look at how advanced they are on the technology integrations. Some of the companies I work with are the infrastructure guys, but every one of these requires solid infrastructure. If I don't have connectivity, if I don't have low latency, if I don't have solutions that support power at the right places, I can't do this. My favorite digital signage solutions are these boxes that just sit on the back of any monitor and make them smart. Or because then all of a sudden I can deliver content to them, I can create wayfinding, and I didn't have to deploy new hardware. And so you're seeing so much more of that go into environments along the way. And then even the connected automobile. So have any of you actually seen Tesla's dancing car? Okay, so Tesla, the entire thing is operated by software. They push software updates all of the time. We won't talk about assembly lines, but on this part of it, and so last Christmas, they created a whole musical sequence with the Teslas that they just pushed to it, and then it can like have its Christmas song and move its doors and its windows and its trunk and play music. I took like 100 high school girls over to the Tesla. Tesla has a large office here, and they brought all their Teslas out, and they did the dancing car for all the high school girls. And it's really, and the college girls, it's really fun to see, but it's just another example where, what happens when Apple thinks about the iCar, right? What happens when Tesla thinks about this deployment? And everything is driven by software updates versus physically moving components. Because what makes the Tesla so innovative is how much it reduced the mechanical components and moved them to software systems. And of course, we've got autonomous driving and all of those other elements that are moving into that, but that's where we're headed. So you see, not only I want a Tesla, but this makes you want one more because it could be really cool in your driveway on whatever the holiday celebration is that we're going after. And they go really fast, so that too. So, with all of that, I just wanted to spend the time today talking a little bit about those mega trends that we're seeing. And I know you in your worlds think about what that means related to the context that you live in, but those trends are going to impact all of us. They'll impact every one of us and how we do our jobs and how we build product, how we get it into the hands of consumers, our users or enterprises, and how we update it, and how we even create consistent deployments that are scalable and that are seamless. And I think the challenge we should all have every day is how do we make technology invisible so that people do the things that create value in their lives and in their companies and drive the right business impacts, and technology just made it completely possible for everyone to crush the worlds that they're in and the things that they're trying to do. I think that's the really compelling part about where this market is headed. And that's why I think the digital and physical integration is so cool. It's not just going to my mobile app anymore, it's my entire physical world. And that means there's so many possibilities and about what we have, which is kind of where I ended, which was that our possibilities really are endless. I really believe anything you can imagine, we're on the brink of making it possible. And that's a really cool place to be. And that we all get to participate in it because we build technology together in our own businesses. So thank you for coming even to our last minute session today and spending time being with us today. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great rest of the conference. And I gave you back 4 minutes of your life right now.